Hello, folks. My name is Susie Schneeman, and if you don't know me, I'm the secretary here at Trinity. Today, I decided that I should take my turn in sharing a devotional. My communication is often in the form of rambling, just ask those who spend much time with me. But I had a few thoughts that I've been pondering, and I decided to share them with you. The other day, I thought so many times lately, I have said to myself, um, it is what it is. And then I wondered who in the Bible maybe had that same thought, and how did they get beyond the disappointment and frustration that I so often feel at that statement? And the person that came to mind was Joseph. Joseph was a pretty good guy. His mistake was to share his dream with his dad and his brothers, and the brothers got nervous about the dream and they got jealous of him. They ganged up on him and threw him in a pit. Now, thanks to Brother Reuben, they didn't kill him, but they did decide to sell him as a slave. And then later in his life, he was thrown into prison for something he didn't even do. And then you can read the whole story for yourself in Genesis 37 to 47. But here was my thinking. When Joseph was in that pit, he probably heard his brothers talking about selling him. I'm sure he was grateful that they decided to not kill him. But did he sit down there and say, well, it is what it is? When he was in prison years later, did he sit there and go, it is what it is? I recently read a devotional that pointed out that over the 13 or so years between being betrayed by his brothers and being used to interpret Pharaoh's dream, God worked in Joseph's heart. My guess would be Joseph was also an optimist. I'm sure God helped him be that way. Positives that he may have seen was, his brothers didn't kill him. His master, Potiphar, recognized his strengths and gave him control of everything in his house. And then Pharaoh put him in charge of his storehouses. Joseph always found favor, and he focused on that. All of these things that happened to him, there was always a negative and a positive incident that went together. Joseph could have stayed focused on the negative, but he didn't. When he encountered his brothers years later, he said to them, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives," in Genesis 50:20. I think that Joseph's response and ultimately his character remind me of how I should let my own focus be. Over the past several months, I have battled to be optimistic on more occasions than I could even count. That's not normally my personality, but there have been a lot of not normal things in the past several months. So I've had to ask myself, how can I be that optimistic version of me again? How do I hold on to my joy? I came up with a few ideas. One, I've said for years, I am so grateful that God chooses to use me. I'm not skilled in any particular way that would have dropped me into God specifically wanting to use me. But he does, and it's always amazing to watch what he can do. It's very, very humbling. The other thing is I stop and remind myself that he is in control, and I trust him more than anyone on earth. It's his will, his timing, and his plan that are needed. Not mine. I would mess the whole thing up. And then the third thing is I have to recognize that as much as I love being a bubbly, happy person, it's more important to realize that joy is more important than happiness, and actually more attainable as well, because the joy comes from God. In Romans 15:13, it says, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit you may abound in hope. The peace and joy come from God. He wants me to have those. All I have to do is ask. So, though sharing a devotional isn't really my strong suit, I do want to encourage you to hang in there. If you have recently been struggling to stay positive, optimistic, joyful, normal may have changed, but God has not. And if we determine to walk close to Him, we'll remember all those things that we have to be grateful for and will bring you joy. So, have a great, joyful day. I'll talk to you soon.